Welcome to a tutorial about lighting and lights, what they do, how you can set them. Um, it's very basic. I'm not making anything. I'm just showing you how to use lights and what their parameters are. Now, in another tutorial, I explained about three-point lighting, which is pretty uh, basic. Let's start out with that. I usually use an infinite light. By the way, that light that you saw was the default light. So as soon as I introduce a light, it will switch that off and it will introduce the light that I've actually introduced. Let's call this light the whatchamacallit. You have the fill light, the ambient light, with the backlight, and the key light. Yeah, let's call it key. And of course, this is at a straight angle over the z-axis. I'm just going to turn it around. I'm going to leave it in this place. I usually do that only when I need to move this light, because it's basically sort of like a global light. I'm going to move it only when I'm forced to. I'm just going to add a little bit of an angle to it, so it just doesn't come from the side and from above, but also a little bit sort of sideways from the camera. And that gives me a little bit of light here, but it's not enough. By the way, I'm usually switch on shadows on one single light. I'm just using soft shadows now, getting into this tab later on. Now I'm going to introduce any kind of other light as the fill light. Now get the light here on the floor, and it's in the center. Now this one I'm actually going to move, because otherwise it's not going to light the other side. I'm basically going to put it on the other side and opposed to the key light. So let's call it fill. And of course, not all your lights are 100%. You're not lighting your scene with all 100-watt bulbs. So let's put this down to 33 or something like that. And this will actually give you a little bit more definition on this side. Now you see that the top of the box is actually completely invisible because it has the same shading as the backdrop. Of course, you can add shaders and change it like that, but we also need a different kind of light. Now I usually use an infinite light again. I'm going to turn it towards the camera like this. Not really that straight to the camera, just give it a little tilt, and this will give you a nice little highlight on the top. Now let's call this back. Back? No, just back. This will actually, well, it's affecting the floor as well. I don't want that. Now we're getting this little fuzzy light here in the background. Now that's the first thing I wanted to explain to you. You can actually attach lights to objects, saying that, okay, this light will light this object and not all the other ones. If you have the backlight, for instance, you can go into project, and the project tab will tell you what the light will actually light. It's in the exclude mode. You can make this include if you want, but usually I just leave it like that, and I don't want it to light the floor, so I'll just drag in the floor and we get something like this. Now if I do that with a fill light, I even lose some of the light here. So go to fill light, project tab is already open, and put the floor in here as well. Now the only light that actually lights both objects, so the floor object and the cube, is the key light. If I do this, I'll lose my shadow because there's no light on it, so it will turn out black, which really I might as well just delete the floor. So this is not going to work. I'm just going to delete that. Now this is your very, 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 very basic 3-point lighting. I don't like the way the shadow is sticking out here, but who cares? Going back to the key light, which is the only light that has shadow. Otherwise, you get these stadium lights if they all have shadows. Let's go down to shadow. Now, the first thing I always put down is the density, because that's actually should be called transparency, I think, because it makes the shadows transparent. Of course, you can put in the color. If you want to make it blue, you can have blue shadow. Actually works very well with icy surfaces, which usually have this blue tinge to it. But making the shadow transparent actually makes it a little bit more lifelike, and you can actually see part of the floor through it, which has no texture, so you don't see it really that well. Rotating the key light a little bit more like this will actually give this effect. I should turn it around a little bit. Like this. Now, in most scenes, it's nice if the key light comes at a fairly sharp angle from above. Right now, it's pretty low, so you get these long shadows. It doesn't look very natural, so I'm just going to add it like this. Of course, I get sort of like a grayish thing here, which completely knocks out the background. Well, I can't really see where the cube ends and the floor starts. So I'm just going to add another light, and I'm just going to leave it there. And this light is called the ambient light, because I'm just going to use it for ambient illumination. Ambient illumination basically means the light bounces around, basically comes from anywhere. So the intensity of ambient light is usually very low. 15% is already high. And here you have ambient illumination. If you click that on, it will respond as an ambient light. Now let's see. Of course, it lights the floor as well as my cube, so it won't make any difference here. Let's see if we can, in the project settings of the ambient light, what am I doing? Put the floor in, and it will only give a little bit of difference. Well, I guess I have to solve that with texturing, or just make a shader and add it to the floor, so make it a little bit lighter. Well, obviously that will work. These are the basics. Now let's go back to the fill light, and I can put a restraint on where it lights the cube by means of the fall off. Now, I don't see many people using this in my classes, and it's actually pretty good to use it, because in the natural world, a light will actually fade once you start to move away from it. So if I just set the fall off to linear, you see this black box, sorry, sphere, it's not a box, and basically this says here at the outer rim it's 0%, and here in the dead center at inner radius 0, it will be, what was it again, 33%. So we can say, well, 33%, we're going to extend that, and we're going to do it like this. Now you get these, it becomes a little bit more subtle, and of course this surface becomes darker. If we put a little ball in it, maybe. And just shove it out here and make it a little bit smaller. Like that. And make it sit on the floor. Imaginary floor, of course. Maybe, just maybe, yeah. Now, what I like is that the infinite light that is used as the backlight gives this little rim here, which separates it from the background. That's important. Now, there's tons of tutorials about lighting, and in the next one I'm going to show you about volumetric lights and visible lights. Check out the Grayscale Gorilla tutorials that have anything to do with lighting, and they have their own light set. They're soft boxes, and they're actually great. They're really superb. Check these tutorials out, because there's a lot of good professionals out there that put out a lot of interesting stuff.